Welcome to this short video on the new discharge process for physiotherapy. We've developed a couple of template letters within PPS which will make it much easier and quicker to just discharge your patient from the service. First thing you need to do is go to the client log. If the patient that you're discharging isn't already selected, then press F6 to search for the patient. Type in the first few letters of their surname and first name and select. Then go to the last consultation that the patient saw you, so the last time that they were in for an appointment. In this case it's the 28th of May. Double click on that and then we need to complete a form. So up here, complete a form. It's the physiotherapy outcome and discharge form, and by clicking that it generates a blank form like this. There are a number of sections to work your way through, and what these do is it uses a number of drop downs, tick boxes and a little bit of free text within the form to generate everything that you need for your discharge letter. So let's start at the top. Either numerically or alphabetically choose the diagnosis, the clinical diagnosis. So for Mr. Test, in this case, let's say he's got an impingement. The body part, he's got a shoulder, and this box here, the provisional diagnosis or the working diagnosis, whatever you write in here inserts in the top of the letter for the GP. So make sure that it's descriptive enough for the GP to understand what's going on, but not too over technical. The next section is really just to describe the sort of treatment that you gave the patient. So we did some mobilisation of the shoulder, some soft tissue work around the rotator cuff, and we gave them a rotator cuff strengthening program. Was the patient also given some advice or education? Invariably this is probably yes. They were given advice about their presenting complaint, they were given a home exercise program, and we also gave them a little bit of reassurance because they were quite worried about what was going on. Did we issue any equipment for the patient? Not in this case, so that can be left blank. So then we move down to the discharge information. We want to know where the patient has ultimately ended up. In this case the patient's nearly better, we're referring them, discharging them back to their GP. But you can see they can be referred on to orthopaedics, rheumatology, neurosurgery, pain services, podiatry and other services which you can fill in the detail of. So in this case they're discharged back to their GP. The next section is if you want the GP to do something specific for this patient, and this highlights it in the letter that's created. So let's say, yes, please review pain medication. You'll see where that comes up shortly. And the patient's been sent off for a month or two to do their exercises and told that they can come back into the service at any time within that couple of months. So have they got an SOS appointment? Yes they do, and that's been kept open for them for 2 months. Then we get to the outcome information. We're recording a PROM, so a patient recorded outcome measure. So what has the patient said their improvement in their condition has been? Everything from no change through to up to 100%. There's also a checkbox here for a long-term condition. You might select that when the patient has got a condition that we don't expect to improve their pain or particularly improve their condition, but we've given them some good advice so that they're better able to manage their condition, or if they've perhaps not turned up for their last appointment or that we're not sure about this, we can select not known. But in this case, this patient's most of the way there and they've got a little bit of work to do themselves. They've returned to full-time work because they were off work, and they've also returned to some of the activities of daily living that they're having problems with. Other improvements, we saw a big improvement in strength, and then if there's any other subjective or objective improvements that you've noted yourself that you want to include in the letter, then this is the area that you can write some free text. So patient was able to return to squash and has played 3 times without any problems. Okay, can proof it as you go, but you'll see in a minute once this drops into the Word document, you can use the spell checker as well. So actually, let's leave that misspelt, and we'll show you what that looks like in a minute. And then the very final part of the process is to confirm the discharge date. So if you scroll right down to the bottom of the form, the easiest way to do this is to double click in that box, and that inserts today's date. You can manually change that date if you need to, but that's the simplest way to put that date in there. So that's the end of the process for just a standard discharge. There is a consultant referral section, but we'll touch on that separately. So that's all you need to do to discharge your patient back to your GP. Now the next part is generating the letter. So you simply drop to the bottom of the form and press the Word icon. It's asking you to save the form, which you want to do. And then it creates the Word document. We don't want to mark the letter as complete because it hasn't been sent out yet. The admin team will mark it as complete, so make sure that you select No each time. And that's just a pop-up to let you know that there's now a record within the patient's log of this letter. So here's the letter down here. So we want to now quickly check the letter for any mistakes. So if we work our way down, this is the diagnosis that you wrote in, that you typed in yourself. The outcome, they've been discharged back to physiotherapy. And if you remember that we selected this box here, any action required from the GP, yes. So where that's been inserted is here, and it's been highlighted, so it's really obvious for the GPs that we want them to do something. And this green area just tells the GP that there's an SOS appointment open for this patient and that it's open for the next 2 months. And again, that's come from the SOS here, inserts that paragraph, and that's the time frame. So it's important that this letter goes back to the GP straight away, not when the SOS is finished, but when the SOS has begun, so that if the patient presents to the GP in that 2 months, they'll be able to have a look at this letter and know just to send the patient straight back in, or get the patient to call us directly without making another referral. And then further down, we've got the management, so what happened. And here we've done mobilisation, soft tissue and strength. If we have a look back up, mobilisation, soft tissue and strengthening work. Patient and education and advice was given, and that was what sort of advice was given. So back in our letter, you can see that there's a couple of different paragraphs have been inserted into the letter based on the decisions, on the choices that you've made in your form. You might want to tidy this up a little bit, just to make nice paragraphs and sentences just for presentation. And then we get down to the outcomes. The patient reported an 80 to 100% improvement. They've returned to part-time work, and they're managing well, and they've been able to get back to some of the day-to-day activities, and there's been a strength improvement, and the patient was able to return to squash and has played 3 times without any problems. And you'll see here the Word has picked up the spelling mistake, so you correct your spelling mistake as you go, and then it's signed off electronically. Just check the signature. The letter is designed to pick up the last physiotherapist that saw the patient and the qualifications, so just make sure that it's signed off by the appropriate person. Once you've saved this letter, it's going to be sent to the GP directly, so make sure quickly, just have a quick look and make sure that the presentation's good. So up here, there's no doctor blogs, so let's put that in. That should be picked up automatically, but if it's not, just tidy up any of those little nuances through the letter, and then that's good to go through. We save that, close it down, and then we save and close the form. And then the last thing to do is to go back to the client's log, make sure the letter is there. That's one that I've done earlier. Now you'll see that this letter is still in my name, so we need to open that, so double click on that action, and then we need to change the person who's responsible for that now to either admin if you're on the private team, or NHS admin if you're in the NHS team. Oops, that didn't select, so just double check. So that's now the NHS admin team's responsibility. You're happy for that to go, so perhaps if you come down into the notes section, date and time, stamp it and say please send. and that's done. A slight variation to that process for patients who have been given an SOS appointment: when you're finalising the letter and sending it to the NHS admin team, simply put SOS and the number of months that the patient has available to them to book back into the service into the subject line of the letter. This allows the admin team to work directly from the patient's log should they ring up to make an appointment. It's clear that this patient has an SOS appointment available to them for 2 months from the 28th of May 2012. This does away with the need to raise a separate action to track these SOSs over a number of months. As we previously said, the letter should go back to the GP at the date of their last appointment, regardless of whether they have an SOS appointment available to them or not. So we hope this has simplified the discharge process. It will give us a rich amount of information about the patients. It's important that each patient that you see gets discharged and suitable outcomes are recorded against them so that we can report that back to the PCT and the GPs.